lovelies. Hello, black sheep. Hello, chosen ones. This is going to be our pilot episode of the Black Sheep Society podcast. I'm your host, Jenna. This episode is going to be for mature audiences, so it is for people over the age of 18. We're going to be discussing some adult topics and some things that could be triggers, so know that going forward, this episode is for mature audiences only. This episode is going to be on spiritual awakening, specifically my own. I was asked to share my story, so I will share my story in great detail. For those of you that don't know, I also wrote a book. It's called Stepping Stones to Destiny. I am going to be sharing some things out of the book that pertain to my spiritual awakening. It's part of why I wrote it to begin with, was to share my story. So if you would like to purchase this, there will be a link in the description box of the video for you to see it, for you to download it, or for you to purchase it. So where did it all begin? That's the biggest question of the day, right? Where did it all start? How did you know it was happening? So what does it mean to have a spiritual awakening? So the definition is a profound shift in consciousness, a newfound awareness or perspective, finding your purpose in life and connecting to the world around you in new ways. So for me, my first encounter of a spiritual awakening happened when I was in my late 20s. I was about 28 years old. I was married at the time. I had 4 small sons. I was a full-time parent. I was a stay-at-home mom. And during that time, we went through a lot of ups and downs. At that point in time, my marriage was kind of rocky. We were having a lot of problems with extended family, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, the father of my oldest son. There was just a lot of problems going on. So in 2008, we were going through a divorce, and during that time, I had lost pretty much everything. I had lost custody of my 4 sons. I had to be hospitalized in a psych ward because I was having difficulty coping with life. I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. They thought that I had bipolar disorder, a whole slew of problems that stemmed from a lot of issues that happened in childhood. One of those being that I was sexually abused and molested and raped by a friend of the family when I was 8 years old. And so some of those things kept coming back and creating more problems in my life because I hadn't healed those things yet. So in 2008, while going through a divorce, I had to be treated for, I want to say it was like over a week in the psychiatric unit, and trying to kind of get my bearings and figure out what I was going to do. My husband had left me destitute. He left me with no money. He left me with no vehicle. He took custody of the kids. And when I was about to be released, I literally had no place to go. I didn't have family that I could stay with. I didn't have friends that would help me out. So I was literally left to my own devices to figure it all out. Thankfully, I made a friend in there and was able to have a place to go once I finally did get out. Stable on medication, seeking counseling on a regular basis, and trying to kind of piece back together the broken pieces of my life. So in 2008, we proceeded forward with a divorce. My ex-husband was awarded sole custody of my 4 sons. My oldest child was with somebody else. He was his biological father. And so it shattered the family when things fell apart for me. So that was the first start of my spiritual awakening. In 2008, while I was in the hospital, I remember feeling completely alone. I remember calling out to God and praying like I had never prayed before about the future. And I remember asking God that if He just helped me to get through this situation in one piece, and if I could just get my kids back in my life, that I would do whatever He needed me or wanted me to do without question going forward. I just wanted to get through this really difficult time in my life. And so at that point, I remember praying a lot. I remember God was kind of the only refuge that I had at that time. And so I spent many hours alone, many hours journaling. That was when I first started writing my book. And so it's been like, almost 20 years at this point, 15, 16 years ago. And I remember sitting in that mental hospital and filling up a spiral notebook in about 3 days. Just had so much that I had to get out, so much that I had to discuss. And I didn't feel comfortable talking to the therapist. I didn't feel comfortable in group settings. So I poured my heart out into my journal and just tried to get everything out of me that had been a disruptor in my life. Everything that had made me feel horrible. Everything that had held me back. And I just poured my heart out into this journal for days and days on end. And so when I finally was released from the hospital, I was starting a whole new chapter in my life. I was going to end up living with somebody that I had met there. And, she was a stranger to me, but ended up helping me out. And we were good friends for several years after the fact. But I feel like there's so much to learn from the experiences that we go through. And that was where it started for me. So most of the time, a spiritual awakening happens as a result of a traumatic event unfolding. So that was the first one, was losing my children, going through a really nasty, horrible divorce. And I feel like that was the tip of the iceberg, because my true spiritual awakening didn't come until 2020. So it's known as a dark night of the soul, which basically translates to all of the skeletons come out of the closet, and it's usually all at once, like a giant snowball effect. So for me, I had a dream about my mom's passing in May of 2020. And so I write about that in the book, and I talk about what it was like leading up to that. So I will read this part out of the book so that you guys can hear it. It's something that I feel like changed me. It changed me in ways that I never could have anticipated. Most for the better, not all. But it was one of the most difficult chapters in my life after losing my children. And so I feel like that's something that really opened my eyes. It's something that helped me to see there's a bigger world out there. It kind of catapulted me forward towards what I'm here to do, which is to help other people heal, whether it's through personal readings, whether it's through reading my book, whether it's through sharing my own personal experiences, but I'm here to help people heal. And so part of this is being able to tell my story or share my testimony. And it all really started for me with this dream that I had prior to my mom passing. So in May of 2020 is where it all starts. So in May of 2020 is where all of these things started for me that really catapulted me forward. And as I said, usually it is some sort of tragedy that kind of starts the trajectory for things to change for you. So I titled this, It Begins with Tragedy. I've said already that I wanted to help people heal. I don't know how I was going to do that. There were many trials and losses in my life. There was one that I saw coming that I so badly wanted to be wrong about. This one event started my deep spiritual journey and led me to do what I feel I am called to do. Healing people's pain and blocks in energy with my readings, to give them some sort of closure so that they too can move forward. In May of 2020, I had a dream about my mom. In my dream, I saw that my mom had died. She lived alone and had already had 2 strokes in years before. Leading up to this dream about losing my mom, I was having weird experiences that I didn't know what exactly was happening. I would be trying to sleep, and just as I dozed off, it looked like a floodlight was turned on. I startle awake and see only darkness in my bedroom. This happened several times over a few weeks. I tried to find out what it was, and to the best guess that I had was that an angel was visiting. They are such a high frequency that it's like a blinding bright light. I truly was afraid that I might be unwell. I overthink everything. I honestly thought that it's my time, it's coming, and the bright light that we all hear about when we pass on, I was not dying. My mind was also trying to grasp what all the crazy things were that were going on. I still am not sure what the bright light was. It was happening more than a few times. The same thing happens. I'm starting to fall asleep, and I feel like a bright floodlight has been turned on in my room. When I open my eyes, it's completely dark and nothing is on. Then I had dreams that I didn't understand. These were unlike any before. I could see an illuminated tunnel is the best way I can describe it. In the tunnel were many, many people that I've lost in my life. The first two people I saw were John's mom and dad, my significant other, Jimmy and Marcy. Now remember, I've never met them in life. I saw my mom's parents, my grandma Helen and my grandpa Lee. I saw my best friend Jerry, who was murdered. I saw my friend Uncle Mike, my sister-in-law Danon, who I also had a dream about her death a year or more before it happened. They were all staggered through the hallway, and I couldn't at the time get what it meant. They were all standing, smiling in the tunnel like they were waiting for something. I'm still having the bright flashes of light as I fall asleep, and at this point, I just want to know what it meant. I have a dream that my mom dies. I wake up panicked, and I call her. She answers. I say, "Thank God you're alive, Mom." She laughs and says, "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" I told her I had a dream that I saw you die. It scared me so bad that I had to check on you. Are you okay? She said, "Yeah, I'm fine." That weekend, I went to see her for Mother's Day. We went to a park that we went to as kids, just Mom and I. We ate a hamburger in the park, talked, enjoyed the sunshine, and reminisced about old times. We had been unable to see each other on my 40th birthday a few weeks before because of the COVID lockdown, and I didn't want to take a chance that I'd bring something to her. She was already ill with strokes and fibromyalgia. She lived in a senior building, and they were not allowing visitors either, so we went to the park. We took a picture of the two of us that day, and I will treasure it forever. It was the final picture I got of my mom and me. In a few short weeks, I would understand why all the dreams and odd things were happening. I saw my mom the day before she went to be with God. I didn't know it would be the last time that I saw her alive. She went running errands, and then we talked like we always did. I must have spent several hours just talking to her. She seemed healthy, seemed just fine. Didn't seem sick or hurting or anything out of the ordinary. I was not feeling great. I also had recently in March before my birthday learned that I also had fibromyalgia. I lived an hour and a half from my mom, so I dropped her off, I hugged her, I told her I loved her, and I watched her walk into the building for the last time. It wasn't uncommon for us to not talk for over a week or so. I usually went to see her after visiting my sons. I was due to see her in a few days to cut her hair. She had been growing it out for over 3 years, and it needed a bit of a change. I sent her some pictures to see what she wanted and didn't hear from her. Mom was always running errands or doing something and didn't always get back to messages right away. So I figured by the weekend I would hear from her to set up her haircut. Later that week I had some errands to do too, and it had been a busy week for us. I had a scheduled doctor's appointment for Nate, one of my sons, that day. As we check in, I'm waiting in the lobby, and I get a call from my niece, Dakota. She said, "Auntie, is Grandma Dawn okay?" And I said, "I think so. Why, honey? What's going on?" She said, "A friend of mine called me to tell me that they were sorry for the loss of my grandma." I told Dakota I would make some calls, don't panic, and let me call you back. I first tried calling my mom. No answer. I tried her on her Facebook. No answer. I left her at least 2 voicemails. Then I had to call her apartment building's office. They didn't answer right away, so I kept calling until somebody picked up. I told the woman who I was and who my mom was, and that we were hearing some rumors of her possibly passing away from a resident in her building. So I needed them to go do a welfare check on her. She told me that they would check on her and call me back. As I stood outside the doctor's office that day, I could feel the fear welling up inside of me. So many thoughts went through my head. I tried to stay calm and not completely break down. I called John, my significant other, while I was waiting to hear back from her apartment building. I told him my niece called and my mom might be in trouble, or worse, dead. We were waiting to hear back from them, and I would be home soon. I remember feeling like I wanted to be sick. I told God I wasn't ready for her to be gone yet. I begged him, not my mom, please, not yet. When we got home from the doctor, I tell John what's going on. I still hadn't heard back from the apartment building, and it had been over 30 minutes. We called the local police. The apartment didn't call us at all, and it had been about an hour. I called dispatch, and I said, we have to have an officer go check on my elderly mother because we have heard that she died and no one can reach her. Those were the hardest minutes of my life. I knew. When the phone rang, I took a deep breath, and I prepared to hear the worst news of my life. The woman on the other end was so kind and so patient. She stayed on the line with me for a long time, while she told me the worst news I've ever had to hear. We made contact with your mother's unit. When we entered the apartment, we found your mom in the bathtub. The water had been running, but she was not submerged. She looked like she fell, either getting into or out of the shower. We found her in a seated position, and she was deceased. I don't know what I said to Marcy, the victim's advocate officer. I couldn't process what I just heard. I felt like my life had just been rocked hardcore. I found it ironic that her name was John's mom's name, Marcy, and here she was telling me my mom was gone. She gave me a list of information and made sure that I was not alone and that I was okay enough to get off the phone. Before we got off the call, I told her, I know it sounds crazy, but I had the dream that my mom passed and that I had to find out through the grapevine of what happened, that I ultimately learned from the police, just like what happened. She said, I don't think you're crazy, and I believe that God works in mysterious ways. Marcy also told me that the officer at the apartment had gotten a call about the time I called them, about an odor on her floor. They had been going door to door, checking on all of the people in the building of the residence. When I called dispatch to send an officer out, someone had a conversation saying, how did they know already? We haven't called the family yet. I don't believe in coincidences, but this would have been one. I didn't want to call my sister to tell her this, so Marcy did it for me. My sister and I had a falling out years before due to the abuse that we went through as children. My dad had not spoken to me in over 5 years, and I knew he wouldn't give a shit about my mom, but I still needed to tell him, along with a million other people, that my mom had died. This was a long line of trauma that God needed me to heal, and my mom's death was the tipping point for change. Leading up to the call that told me that my mom was gone, a day or so before I received a friend request on Facebook. When I saw it, I froze in fear. I started shaking and again wanted to get sick. John and I had been running errands and I stayed in the car. He got back and he said, "What's wrong with you? You look like shit." I said, "Well, I just got a friend request on Facebook from a guy who raped and molested me as a child, and I don't know what to do." He rattled off some colorful options, and I debated just blocking him and forgetting it, but I couldn't. He never got charged with anything. I was 8 when he abused me and my sister. I couldn't remember much from the time that it happened, but knew that I had been through a lot from the abuse that he inflicted. It was blocked. I remember certain events like they were seared into my brain. The smells, the dirt, the pain of not being believed by my mom. Some things that I wish I could have forgotten. Seeing anything from him made me want to run in fear, to hide, anything to get away from dealing with the monster who had ruined my life. The next day, I decided I needed to speak my piece to this man who had the nerve to even try to talk to me after what he had done to us. I decided I would play stupid and see if I could at least know where he was so I didn't have to live in fear. He asked me if I remembered him. I said I did. He asked if I was married, and I said no, I'm divorced. He said I tried looking for you for years, but I couldn't ever find you. But your sister I found. All of a sudden, one day you showed up. He said, I have thought about you for years, and I always wondered where you were and if you had feelings for me like I do for you. It took so much self-control listening to this piece of shit go on and on like we were a happy couple. I finally collected myself and I said, I was 8 when you stole my innocence. You raped and molested me for years, and I have never hated a person so much in my entire life. If I ever see you again, it will be your last day. He, of course, says that it was all my fault at 8. I actually tried to assault him. God, I wanted to scream. I finally got to say what I needed to say for over 30 years of my life. Let go of the pain that I carried because of the abuse. He blocked me. I reported him and made sure that I saved the messages only in case he ever showed up at my doorstep to get a restraining order on him. Within a few hours of this exchange, I learned that my mom had died. I don't believe in coincidences. I never have. My mom's greatest regret was that she didn't have this monster behind bars for the rape of her daughter. She might not have been able to, in life, make him pay or give me justice. But in death, she did. The very day I find out that she dies is the day that this monster contacts me and I finally get some closure. That was God and my mom all day long, and I know it. I started to take my power back. I refused to ever be a victim again. I said a big thank you to my mom and God and any of the others that had helped make that happen. It was divine intervention. Over time, my sister got to speak her piece about what happened as kids, the abuse from him and the things that he made me do to her. I carry a lot of shame for most of my life for something that I couldn't even understand for years. My sister and I still don't have a relationship, but I know I gave her a chance to say what she needed to for her own healing. My dad finally spoke to me and came to visit after 5 years of not speaking to me. I had problems with one of my sons, and he wasn't talking to me for years either because of trauma from the divorce between his father and I. But definitely some things have improved since then. So I do currently have a relationship with all 4 of my sons. My sister and I, we can be civil if we need to see each other at other things, but we still don't have a relationship, and I still don't have a relationship with my father. So there's definitely some things that have changed. There's a lot of things that have come out in the last, 4.5, 5 years within my own family. There's been cycles of trauma and abuse. All 4 of my sons have been abused in some way, shape, or form, and so we're all working through trying to heal from that trauma. It's been a giant mess. So this would have been the beginning of the dark night of the soul, or, things coming to the surface so that we can ultimately start our healing journey, which is what the spiritual awakening is all about. Healing, becoming our most authentic version of ourselves, not hiding in shame or fear of things that had previously deterred us off our path. And so part of this was losing my mom in tragedy and coming to grips with that new reality. The other part was this family dynamic that I had major problems in my own life, problems with my dad and I. 5 years later, we're still not on good terms. Although I have extended the olive branch several times over, he's refusing to cooperate and try and progress and move things forward. He's an adult, can't force it on him. So this is where we stand, is I live my life and he lives his. I have one sister. She doesn't really speak to me anymore because of all the abuse and trauma that we went through. Some of that I inflicted on her as a result of me being traumatized as well during childhood. So we've made peace with that. We can coexist, her and I. We can communicate periodically should we need to, but we don't any longer have a close relationship. And I've made peace with that as well. Sometimes things just need to separate for them to be healthy. So one of the things that I've started trying to do is to heal generational curses in my family. Not like a witch putting a curse on you, but the kind that follows a family or for generation after generation. Trauma, pain, death, family issues, abuse, those kinds of things. I believe in spiritual warfare. The enemy is the devil, and he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. I've prayed more in the last year than I can ever remember before. God is my BFF, my best friend forever. I can take any issue with him, and he will never abandon me. Never. He is my strength when I am weak. He is my protector when I am in harm's way. And when I need him, all I have to do is ask, and he is there. In all the things I've ever been through, he is the only constant. I am forever grateful and hope one day when I meet my Maker, he says, "Daughter, you have done good, and I am proud of you." I told God one night I was ready for my life's calling, that I would do my best to fulfill what he called me to do. I didn't really know how it would all come together, but he does, and I trust him completely. For healing to stick, you have to be honest and deal with the pain. It is not easy and it can suck, but I am strong enough to do what God called me to do. I am healing me. I heal my family too. The trauma will end in my family, and we will be whole and happy in the years to come. Vulnerability is something I still struggle with. With all the trauma and loss and abuse, I have major trust issues. I'm working through them, but it is a long, hard road to get to the point I can trust and love freely. When I started writing this book, I didn't anticipate sharing all my skeletons in my closet. But to help others heal along their journey, we have to be authentic. That is how I know real healing is finally happening in my own life. Things that I wouldn't dream of sharing because of the pain or shame attached have now become something that I can use to help someone. Before, I still have days that I don't want to talk to people or to be alone with my thoughts. But now I'm practicing self-care on those days. The past is just that, the past, and it can't hurt me now unless I give it my power, and I won't ever again. Journal entry, June 19th, 2020. My mom died today, a week before her birthday. It hasn't sunk in yet. I woke up crying, asking John if my mom was gone. It comes in waves of shitty grief. Some days it consumes me, and others I feel like I'm running on autopilot. Mom's birthday is the first of many without her. We celebrated for her. I made her favorite lemon bars, and we made cookies and tea. Had my aunt and some cousins over. I don't want to be alone today. It was too much, and I couldn't handle it. They brought me a candle and an angel for my garden. Before my mom passed, she gave me some flower bulbs. They are now with her angel statue in my garden. The bulbs will come up every summer right about her birthday. It gives me some comfort to have a beautiful visual from her when that hard time comes up. So after all of the trauma and all of the different things that happened leading up to my spiritual awakening, then it's like, now we're awake. What do we do with all of this? I took a few seminars trying to open my spiritual gifts up. I focused the energy on trying to heal myself as well as trying to heal other people, especially with personal readings. And so this is what happened as a result. Being open to it all. I welcome the signs from God and my angels to show me which way to continue on the path of life. One of my favorite sayings is that life is a journey, not a destination. However, I usually say life is a journey and heaven is the destination. We are here on earth to learn, go through challenges, and see things from a human perspective. When we finish life here, I believe that we may come back over and over until we have ascended to the level that we need to be at our best selves. I feel like I am currently in my ascension process, learning as much as I can on how to do the job that I was sent here to do. I feel like I was so lost for so long, just coasting through life. I wanted to know why I was here. What was it that I needed to know or do? And while I don't fully know what that is, I feel like I'm meant to help others heal. I went through many traumas and tragedies to help shape me. It helped me have compassion and empathy for others in life. I may help them heal from their pain. Only God truly knows what our purpose is here in this life. And one day I know that it will be known to us what we are here to do. I have felt, especially in the last few years, that it was preparation for what I'm called to do. Slowly, the signs have amplified and become so in my face that they are impossible to ignore. Doors have opened in my life that I couldn't have done on my own in the natural world. But in the supernatural, they open right on time. I can no longer ignore the signs that I am being shown. They are everywhere. From a commercial, an ad on TV, social media, a post, a calendar, a dream, a conversation with a friend, a knowing deep within, an animal, a literal sign. They are everywhere if we just look. We have to stop disbelief. There is no such thing as a coincidence to me. It's all part of the divine plan for our life. Everything is in sync with all the cosmos and stars aligned just for us, just on time. God's time, not mine. I never in a million years thought that I'd be writing about such subjects or sharing such personal stories, but when it's part of God's plan, we have to get out of our way and let it happen. We are all here for a reason. God doesn't make mistakes. What we think is a mistake in life, God will use to help us bless others, which will bless us as well. I'm so grateful to all the people who have helped me learn along my journey, from authors who dared to write about their own life experiences as psychics or mediums, to angels in human form or animals who've helped me to hold on when my life was falling apart. It was all falling into place. Little by little, all the signs started to paint the picture of who God had called me to be. I'm still learning. I still feel like I'm growing. I still feel like I'm a work in progress, but that just means it keeps getting better as time goes on. We have to give God the pen and trust the author to write our story. Weaving the tapestry of our life is not done in a day. It takes time and patience and courage to become the best version of yourself. One of my favorite sayings is, "What would you do today if you knew you could not fail?" So what would you do? Step out of your comfort zone and start that thing. What are you waiting for? A formal invite from above? If we expect to grow as a soul, we got to get moving on our goals, ideas, and things that we are afraid of. I believe we are going to start seeing many things fall into place all over our life. The world started to change for the better. Being in a lockdown shook most of us either awake or made us question everything in our life. I think it opened our eyes to things that we just tolerated before. If someone would have told me at 40 that I would have the guts to write a book and let the world know what I see and hear from the Spirit, I probably would have had a good laugh at your expense. Or that I would lose so much that I valued in life, but in its place find my true self. Life is all about changing. Nothing ever stays the same. We won't grow if we don't change. Some changes never scared me. My hair color, moving, job changes. But real deep change is the kind that involves bearing your naked soul, and that shit takes serious courage. I hope something I shared in this book will help you to find your courage to step into your true life, take your power back, claim your victories in your life. Above all else, I hope that you experience true peace in your soul, and when we are at peace, I feel we are truly connected to our Creator. Drop the heavy loads of worry, forgive, be free of anything that stunts your spiritual growth. It's the whole reason we are here, to grow our souls. Walk the stepping stones of your destiny. So in the fall of 2020 is when I started doing personal readings for people. I still offer those. You can book those through my email at tarot, Tarot, bydamsel.gmail.com. So I feel like my purpose for being here is to help other people see that healing, while it can be difficult, it is meant to change us for the better. We aren't meant to stay stuck in these patterns or cycles of trauma and abuse and lack. We are meant to heal these things. And if you feel like you're spiritually called, I feel like we're supposed to step into those roles going forward. Some of you have already done that. Some of you are currently working on those things, and others not yet. But as we approach the 5D consciousness, more and more healers will present themselves in more of a public way so that we can actually help heal the masses, because that's what helps us shift into the 5D frequency. So it's something that I feel like I needed to share. I feel like it was something that God's been putting on my heart for a while now, to share my story publicly, to let other people know that I'm human just like you. And I never in a million years intended to ever be in the spotlight. I'm very much more of a wallflower. I'm more of somebody who's much more comfortable behind the scenes, writing a book, or, doing things where I don't have to be in the public way in some way, shape, or form. And God's calling me out of that. So this was a really difficult one to get through. So I hope you understand why I'm behind the camera on this one. But I needed to share my own personal journey. So this is the story of my awakening. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome, Black Sheep. Welcome, Chosen Ones. It's time to start sharing our stories.